I don't think it can be debated that John Carpenter's The Thing is one of, if not the greatest horror movie ever made. A masterclass in suspense, horror, practical effects work, and writing, The Thing is a marvel in filmmaking that, while not received well at the time of its release, has managed to endure and receive the credit it's always deserved, finding its way into the hearts of almost every horror movie fan, me included. The Thing is my favorite horror movie, and one of my favorite movies, period. I make a point to watch it every time a heavy snowfall hits my neck of the woods. I've read the comics, watched the prequel movie that came out in 2011, and hell, I even bought the board game in spite of having no friends to play it with. The most unfortunate thing for me, though, barring the friendlessness part I just mentioned, obviously, is that in spite of the 1982 film being such a classic, nothing else in the Thing franchise even comes close to it in terms of quality or enjoyment even, much like another of my favorite franchises. Okay, so for reference, I guess The Thing isn't the biggest franchise out there. There's 3 movies, The Thing from Another World, The Thing, and The Thing. There's also the story it's based on, Who Goes There, a novelization of the 1982 film, a book of short stories, 4 comic series, and the topic of our video today, one video game, also titled The Thing. This definitely isn't going to get confusing at all. I picked this game in particular to review for a variety of reasons. Reason 1 being I mainly review games on this channel, let's be real. Reason 2 would be my love of this franchise, and my want to go with something other than the film, which I do feel like has been talked to death at this point. Reason 3 being I played this game a ton as a kid. I even still have my Xbox copy today. I remember enjoying it quite a bit, even though a certain reviewer called it a terrible game. Can't quite remember that reviewer's name though, but some say if you listen to the howling winds, you can hear his voice, even today. Young me also never beat it, so old me is here to rectify that fact, but also to find out if it really is as terrible as I've heard it called. So let's get to it. The Thing is a third-person survival horror video game released for Xbox, PS2, and PC in 2002. Developed by Computer Artworks and published by Black Label Games, it serves as a sequel to the 1982 film and expands upon the Thing universe just a little bit. You play as Captain J.F. Blake, leader of the U.S. Special Forces Arctic Marines Beta Squadron. Blake, alongside 3 members of Beta Squad, are sent to U.S. Outpost 31 to investigate why the outpost has gone dark, with another squadron, Alpha Team, being sent to the nearby Norwegian research facility since it's gone dark as well. The first level of this game is basically a tutorial on top of being a big old slice of fan service for us movie fanboys. You get to explore the blasted remains of Outpost 31, seeing iconic sights from the movie, such as the UFO the Blair thing constructed, the body of Childs, and you can even find McCree's recording from the film if you explore his shack.
I'm gonna hide this tape when I'm finished. If none of us make it, at least there'll be some kind of a record.
Tutorial-wise, here you learn the basics of squad management on top of your fellow squad members' classes. You have the ball-capped engineers who exist to repair advanced fuse boxes and regular fuse boxes if you're too lazy to do it yourself. Medics are heal sluts that keep you and your fellow squaddies topped off on life due to their unlimited healing capabilities. Medics will be your best friend, since their infinite healing means you can save your own med packs for more critical moments. And lastly, the soldier. They shoot real good.
I'm locked, loaded, and ready to make shit dead.
North, did you rack your MP5 like a shotgun? Yeah, that about sums up the soldier class, to be totally honest. Kinda dumb considering your squad mates use guns just fine, and you'll probably be doing most of the killing yourself anyway. Another gun can never hurt though, I guess, and I'm pretty sure soldier is the rarest class in the game anyway. Since I'm talking about your AI squad mates, I might as well mention they're pretty competent in a fight. When a push comes to shove, they can hold their own against the horrors of this game. You might get shot once or twice, but in a hectic fight, I can't say I didn't ever shoot my teammates accidentally, so I can let that little bit slide. You poke around Outpost 31, trying to find information for your commander, Whitley, and while you're exploring, pick up a distress signal from Alpha Team Captain Pierce. Pick up an autopsy report, rig the base to blow up again, and get the hell out of Dodge. Blake sends his team home before heading to Alpha Team's location to investigate the distress call sent out by Pierce. Here at the Norwegian base, you get a whole nother load of fan service, with the ice block room, the corpse of Colin, the man who committed suicide in the 2011 prequel, among a ton of other sites as well. In his investigation of the locale, Blake runs across Alpha Team member Carter, who is wounded and low on trust due to you just randomly showing up here. Carter explains that Alpha Team was ambushed by some weird creatures, and all of them scattered across the facility in the ensuing chaos. You patch Carter up with a nearby medpack, and he still doesn't trust you, meaning you have to further build it. Pretty simply in this case by just giving him any of your spare guns. Since I'm on this topic now, this game boasts a unique trust system between you and your squad mates. Since The Thing is a genre with very heavy themes of paranoia, when you run across potential party members, they may not trust you and will not take orders from you if their trust is beneath a certain threshold, and could even turn on you if their trust drops hard enough. Trust can be built or destroyed by various actions you can take in-game. Giving them weapons, doing a blood test, fighting the things, and healing them will all build trust, whereas stuff like taking their guns away and shooting them lowers it. On top of your squad mates having trust issues, they're also human. I put that in quotes because we'll come back to that later. They're human and can break under the stress of this situation, rendering them more helpless than your average Tumblr user. You can circumvent these breakdowns by just keeping them away from the fucked up sights, and if it comes down to it, pumping their ass full of adrenaline and walking them away from whatever's scaring them. Both trust and stress levels are pretty easily managed, to be totally honest with you, so you never really have to worry about it too much. Anyways, after patching Carter up and earning his trust, you engage in some light puzzle solving before encountering Cruz, another member of the Alpha team. He corroborates Carter's story, and not too long after, you run into the first hostile life forms in the game. Now I can talk about combat. The Thing is a third-person shooter with two different kinds of aiming available to use, and a pretty decent variety of weapons and explosives at your disposal, with which you can engage these hostile alien life forms. Combat itself can be done in one of two ways. In third person, Blake auto-aims at nearby targets, and it's up to you to pull the trigger till whatever you're shooting at stops moving. Blake's a pretty good shot on his own, so you can generally rely on his ability to point, and you'll most likely be doing this throughout most of the game. Alternatively, you have a first-person mode, which, okay, maybe I'm crazy, but FPS mode I feel like massively boosts your accuracy when using your conventional weapons, and is actually pretty useful in a lot of situations. FPS mode lets you aim higher, which means you can bank grenades into areas you wouldn't be able to reach normally. FPS shooting also lets you directly hose the creature with the flamethrower versus third person where Blake always fires at the floor, which, okay, that is how you're supposed to use a flamethrower, but I prefer directly blasting my targets. Weapon-wise, you actually start with your bread and butter weapon in the machine gun, but you also have access to a pistol, a shotgun, a sniper rifle, and of course two different kinds of flamethrowers, a compact military one and a little hand one, which I will admit, I never even used once. Your ballistic weapons are balanced around range, accuracy, and damage. The pistol has low damage, but it's the most accurate when using auto-aim. The machine gun has decent range and damage, and the shotgun obviously packs the most punch, but is crappier when engaging at long range. And the sniper rifle, well, truth be told, that'll be useful later, but once again, I'll say we'll talk about that when it comes. You also have an array of items to use in your offhand. I mentioned grenades, and that's where those are kept. Grenades come in four varieties: small boom, big boom, fire boom, and flash boom. Grenades pack a punch and can clear enemies from an area, but you'll want to be careful using them so you don't take yourself out as well.
Tom Cruise! Tom Cruise using witchcraft on me to get the fire off me!
Why is a flashbang grenade in this game, you might ask? I hate to keep saying it, but we'll get to it a bit later, okay? You also have a flashlight and flares for additional light if you need them, on top of blood test kits, which raise squad member trust if you use them on yourself, and the most useful item in the game, the fire extinguisher. It puts out the flames that you'll be shooting everywhere since this is a Thing game after all. Strangely, these are also unlimited, so you can just run around shooting them for fun if you want. As for the aliens you'll be shooting, things can be broken up into one of three types: small, large, and grande. Small things are called scuttlers and come in three varieties. There's the biped, which runs around, I think bites? I'm not totally sure. The spiders, which screech and lunge at you to attack, and the spitters, which, as the name imply, hot green loogies at you. I don't think they do damage you, but they slow you down severely, making you a more vulnerable target. These smaller things generally just zerg you, and fortunately all can be killed by conventional gunfire. Large things, which have humanoid, less humanoid, and bulldog forms, generally just charge and smack the fuck out of you for a great amount of damage. Large things also have to be weakened to red health with normal gunfire first, before being able to be finished off by the flamethrower. Large things also have a pretty nasty habit of dropping small things on death, but since they're already wreathing flames on death, that problem usually takes care of itself pretty quickly. Okay, back to the story now though. Blake runs across Pierce, who obviously doesn't trust him or the other two Alpha team members he has with him. He demands you go collect some blood tests, bring them back, and test yourselves to prove you're human. You do so, and in a twist that you can both see coming and makes absolutely no sense when you think about it at all, Cruz and Carter are both things. The two humans promptly wax the freaks, and let's take time to talk about the stupidest part of this game really quick. Throughout the thing, your human comrades have a chance of actually being alien assimilants. Makes sense for a game like this, right? But here's the thing. Squad mate infection is almost entirely scripted. And when I say almost entirely scripted, I've read that certain squad members who aren't scripted to turn actually can if they take too much damage from enemy things. I never encountered this personally, but the Thing wiki says it can happen, and it has pictures, so I guess it's true. Otherwise, when an NPC crosses a certain threshold in-game, they will turn immediately. This happens with basically every squad member, barring the few that just fucking vanish between levels, or meet their demise in cutscenes. It also doesn't make any sense for these turnings to be so scripted. Do you remember this scene from the 82 movie where McCready talks to the whole group, confidently states he's a human, and that if everyone else in the base was already assimilated, they'd just jump up and attack him now? Well, same exact concept goes for this game, and that's where the whole turning thing falls apart. To use your first two squaddies as an example, you meet Carter solo and heal him up. If he's infected, why doesn't he just attack me? The same thing can be said for Cruz, who's also infected. Hell, why don't they both just turn and gang up on me? It'd be a 2v1, and I don't even have a flamethrower. Blake would be an easy target for these assimilated people, but no, they wait till I can prove they're not human, and when I'm flanked by someone who can actually kill them. Makes fucking sense, right? This happens time and time again throughout the game, to the point where you just come to expect it. Honestly, if you didn't need engineers for advanced junction boxes and got free healing from medics, you could probably just execute every squad member you run across. They're pretty much always gonna turn anyway, so what's the point in waiting? Not like there's a consequence for killing them anyway. Back to the story though, Blake and Pierce head out into the snow in the hopes of finding a radio somewhere deeper into the base so they can contact Whitley. Blake and Pierce get separated in the snow. Blake subsequently meets up with Alpha team members Pace and Williams before the trio head off to pursue a mysterious Norwegian who has seemingly stolen the last radio in the base and ran off. But before you start to pursue him out, you get to participate in a fun shooting gallery stage. You pursue the Norwegian to another part of the base. Williams and Pace turn on you, because of course they fucking do, and you run across Pierce once again, but uh-oh, he's infected and he knows it. So, Pierce commits an hero, and that's the end of Alpha Team. Blake, now the last surviving member of the Arctic Marines, chases the Norwegian solo, and it's here you run across the first Grande-size thing. There's a handful of bosses in this game. They're basically just giant masses of flesh and tentacles. I can say with no doubt in my mind that the bosses are probably the worst part of this game. There's no real strategy to them. You just blast at them and then burn them to death as you would a standard large thing. They do a shit ton of damage and you will fight everyone alone, so just make sure you're stocked on med packs before you go into one. You kill the Norwegian thing and retrieve the radio, but you also find out this facility goes even deeper. Blake heads down to the Piron sub-facility, finding a file that states Dr. Faraday is the head of this lab, and he should probably find him if he wants some answers as to what the hell is going on around here. Blake ends up finding Faraday deeper in the facility. Fun fact, Faraday is both portrayed by John Carpenter and provides the voice for him. A fun little cameo right here by the director of the movie. Blake rescues Faraday and gets him to the surface, but is unfortunately headed off by a bunch of Spec Ops soldiers and his own commanding officer, Whitley. Blake demands answers from his superior, but is only given a tranquilizer dart for his trouble. Blake's taken away alongside Faraday to the Strata Research Facility, a lab operated by the mysterious Gen Inc., a shadowy company that's been running experiments on the alien life form for God knows how long now. Whitley reveals to Dr. Faraday that he's infected himself with the life form, and that he actually can control the assimilation that's overtaken him, or so he thinks at least. The Strata facility also ends up being compromised by the infection now, and in the process of attempting to purge the facility, Faraday is shot dead by Whitley. Blake regains consciousness sometime later, now fully knowing that Whitley is behind this, and needs to be stopped immediately. It's here in the Strata facility's first area that I actually think there's a pretty interesting experiment in decision making in regards to the trust system. You're completely weaponless at the start, in a facility crawling with things both small and large. You can find some machine gun ammo laying around, but no gun to load it into until you run into Rice Pirate here, which puts you in a bit of an interesting position. Do you give him the ammo and let him be your escort, hoping he can kill the small things that are swarming around? Or do you take his gun, obliterating his trust in you entirely, and hope you can get to the armory quick enough to rearm him and get him back on your side? Or, the third option, give him the ammo, tell him to stay put, and run around like a spaz, avoiding the things and locking him behind doors, returning to him if you take damage since meta-killing is unlimited. Multiple paths to solve levels and accomplish goals indeed. You bust into the armory with the assistance of Engineer Dixon and gun yourself up. Thank God being without weapons is over now. From there on, you explore the facility. Among the files you can find in the facility are actually two pretty interesting ones. The first being that Blake is actually resistant to the alien creature's assimilation abilities. Kind of fanfiction, and I can't lie, but I feel like this is the first time I've ever seen an in-universe justification for being immune to a virus, essentially. The second being Whitley seems to be struck with some kind of terminal illness, which explains his willingness to be assimilated, since the creature would be able to reassemble his body perfectly without it. Though, I'm not sure how sound this logic is, since that didn't help Norris back in the movie. He still had a heart attack after all. The Strata facility is also where you start fighting Whitley's Spec Ops soldiers. These soldiers use the exact same weapons you do, and are honestly more difficult to deal with than the aliens themselves, even, since they can engage you at range, and, well, their guns do just as much damage as yours. This is also where the sniper rifle and flashbang grenades that I mentioned actually start having some use, since you can pop soldier heads from a distance, and the flashbangs disable them long enough for you to just run up and slaughter them with ease. You start fighting a mix of the alien and soldiers from here on out, with these two factions fighting each other on occasion as well. These soldiers are always human, which I kind of feel like is a huge missed opportunity on top of being a huge plot hole, potentially. These soldiers, all human, I must re-reference, take Whitley's orders without question, Whitley being a confirmed thing, so why do they do that? I suppose it's possible all these soldiers simply don't know he's been assimilated, but the various engineers and medics around the facility have abandoned their loyalty to Genique, so why not any of them? Well, barring Soldier Fisk, of course, but his head is in one of these jars, so is he even human anyway? He kinda just disappears too, so we'll never know. It'd be a lot better, on top of making more sense if these Spec Ops units came with infested versions that function similarly to the Ganados from Resident Evil 4, hell, even the Type C Plagas from Resident Evil 6. Blast them and you can face a mutation of some sort, which you have to burn to death, obviously. Something like this would help shake up the late game fights, on top of making the flamethrower a less redundant weapon late game, since the final few levels of the game, you're only fighting these soldiers after all. Yeah, that's kinda fucked up, isn't it? Climax of the game is spent fighting soldiers and not things. At least the final boss is an assimilant. Back to the story though, after you escape the Strata facility and blow it up, you spend the rest of the game pursuing Whitley across Antarctica, on top of sabotaging his attempts to spread the virus to the mainlands of Earth. Not much interesting stuff happens in these later levels, but I will say, I had a lot more fun going John Wick on Whitley's soldiers than I thought I would. At the game's climax, Whitley mutates into a massive aberration of twisted flesh. A helicopter swoops down to pick Blake up for the final battle. I can't lie, this is a horribly mediocre final boss segment. You blast away at the Whitley thing in an on-rails segment. You blast the barrels at its base to ignite the fire and then just shoot at it till it dies. You fly away from a now-dead Whitley thing, and Blake thanks the pilot for the quick pickup. The pilot turns out to be RJ McCready! Yeah, Kurt Russell is back, and he saves your ass at the climax of this game. McCready flies with you, and the game promptly ends. Another infection put down, and the world is safe. Thus ends the video game sequel to the best horror movie of all time. What are my thoughts? Kinda disappointing, to be totally honest with you. Well, I think wasted potential might be the better word for this game. In a vacuum, I don't think this is a bad game for reference. It's a solid 7 out of 10, to be totally honest. Barring the incredibly lame boss fights, it's a pretty fun game overall, though it is kinda on the short side, my playthrough only totaling around 4.5 hours. But as a sequel to The Thing, it's unfortunately as lacking as the 2011 prequel movie. I don't know if a third-person action game was the way to go for a Thing game. On top of the fact it definitely seems more action than horror-oriented. There's some shock stingers, and attempts at a scare in there, but they all fall pretty flat, to be totally honest. You can also stack on the fact that trusting your teammates is pretty pointless since they always burst out with a script anyway, or just vanish between levels. If squad mates didn't have their built-in uses, well, you wouldn't even need them to beat this game. It definitely also feels like developers were stretching for game mechanics, considering how big a part fixing fuse boxes was for the game, and for all the talk of the trust system, this game doesn't really do anything mind-blowing or unique with it. The Thing had a sequel planned, and it even got to the proof of concept stage with a ton of concept art for various things, and a plot that would have centered around Blake and McCready battling an infection that spread around a refinery town. Some of the concept art's pretty rad, and I'm sad the sequel never happened since developer Computer Artworks went bankrupt. At the end of the day, though, The Thing is an alright game, but if you're looking for a Thing-related experience, it will most likely not satisfy you at all. If you want an experience like that, well, you're probably better off trying Among Us or Unfortunate Spacemen. Dead Space would be a good pick, too, if you're looking for a more hardcore body horror-related experience. Anywho, I'm Hades Manticore. This is City State Manticore. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.